My name's Andy Luke, this channel is Andrew Luke, and you're watching Screencleaner, a show about the media, politics, current affairs and culture. This episode we're devoting to E-Petitions and the power that they have to wield positive or negative change at a grassroots level. It's established decadence for corporations to lobby government or media, or for media to lobby government through the way they tell stories. But if we're looking for blame or power, it's not only those three sectors, it's you as well. Yes, you smug, selfish bugger. I'm talking to you. It's your fault, you idiot, with your bribes to watch a reaction video on Mojo's 10 Best Marvel Heroes, and drinking beer and eating cake when you should be upholding democracy. Not that it's your job, mine, or mine. Whew. There's a number of conceits around the power of petitions. They make no difference. They don't listen to us anyway. The sort of arguments used by people who don't vote, and then they whine when some incest king becomes an MP. Not every corporation who shovels cash at an MP gets favours either. There's lost investments in honouring agreements of influence, one partner or another not exactly adhering to loyalty. Signing an e-petition takes less than 3 minutes. 1 minute with a bit of practice, and that's a lot quicker than a bus to a protest or organising a whale-free cake sale. But yes, you can make cakes for cake sales that don't have whale in them. But if you asked our government to do that, they'd give you a grey whale and Black Forest Gateau, a mink whale and a Madeira, a Battenberg full of blubber, and a dessert fork for orca. Throughout this episode, I'll explore the successes and failures in various parliamentary petition facilities and touch on those set up by non-government organisations. The Commons has taken in petitions from the public since 1669, provided you weren't a woman, or a man without the prerequisite property, or under 21. Those quibbles took 250 years to sort out, but petitions made a key difference in empowering Chartism and the suffragettes, granting voting rights for men and women. Those rights were hard fought. For one, a presented petition didn't give rise to a parliamentary debate because the House had too many other things on. Right, so Monday is colonising India. Tuesday we have to talk about those Irish barbarians and how hard to come down on them. Put that one in the docket. Wednesday to discuss the strip mining of the East Indies. That's such a lot of work. Better put a whole day in the comments here for getting pissed on port on Thursday. Friday is a hearing of the Act of Entitlement, right? And for flogging and mutual masturbation, a vote, you say? No. That matter can be dealt with by the next government, or the one after the next one. It wasn't until 1969 when over 18s were granted the vote. The 20th century already was seeing a rapid decline in the number of petitions presented. This changed in 2006 with the launch of the Downing Street E-Petitions website. You can see opposition in 2006 to ID cards, and in 2008 the campaign for British citizenship for ex-Gurkha soldiers, which had considerably more traction. Downing Street Petitions was little more than a delivery system, but it did serve as a prototype for the current system. In July 2011, the Coalition of Austerity facilitated a new system at a new website. Responsibility for taking these discussions went through to the Backbench Business Committee, and in 2015 an established Petitions Committee with a new dedicated parliamentary website. Sessions of the Petitions Committee take place on a Monday and are filmed for publication on the UK Parliament's YouTube account, arranged in a dedicated playlist. Here's Daily Blasé with some more detail.
You've probably seen them shared online, petitions calling for change, demanding action, or just trying to get Parliament to listen. But what actually happens when thousands of people sign one? Well, let's have a look at how e-petitions work in UK politics and whether they really do make a difference. E-petitions are official online petitions submitted to the UK Parliament. Anyone with a UK postcode and an email can start one, and if it gets enough support, it can trigger a government response or even a parliamentary debate. At 10,000 signatures, the government must respond. At 100,000, the petition is considered for debate in Westminster Hall, a space where MPs discuss issues raised by the public. Once a petition hits 100,000 signatures, the Petitions Committee reviews it. If they approve, it's scheduled for debate, usually in Westminster Hall, not the main Commons chamber. These debates ain't binding, they don't create laws, but they do put pressure on ministers, shape public discourse, and sometimes spark further action, especially if the media picks it up. Most petitions raise awareness, but some do help to change the law, and here are some that did. The sugar tax, backed by Jamie Oliver, led to a levy in sugar drinks. A petition against mandatory high heels at work helped change the dress code guidance. Animal sentience was legally recognised for sustained petitioning. And the online safety bill, one that really stood out for me, was shaped by multiple petitions demanding tougher rules on abuse and platform accountability. Whether it goes far enough, I think that's another discussion, isn't it? Petitions ain't a magic wand. They don't guarantee change, but they're a powerful way to show what matters to people, especially between elections. They give voice to underrepresented issues, mobilise communities, and sometimes, just sometimes, help shape the law. So next time you see a petition gaining traction, don't dismiss it. It might just be the start of something bigger.
The UK Parliament Petitions website in use today has been a mixed bag. As Daily Blasé said, there have been other successes. Marcus Rashford's campaign against child food poverty put the squeeze on Spafford Johnson, prompting the embarrassment into a U-turn. Set up in 2020, it was one of the most popular petitions of the time, except in Northern Ireland, the dickheads. The most popular petition this year was a call for a general election, which didn't remove the skunk from the wedding. However, the government dropped their plans for more welfare cuts in 2025, largely because of over 3 million people signing. And that story picked up by the media and other MPs. The website forbids duplicate petitions, but you can have one after another. The second petition this year, calling for a general election, is well past 1 million at this point. The British government have a solid history of ignoring the will and the want of the people. Just prior to the setup of government e-petitions, millions of activists opposed the invasion of Iraq, the biggest protest in 200 years, maybe longer, ever, fell on deaf ears. 3 of the UK's 5 largest protests have been calls for a second EU referendum, and this subject matter also occupies a top spot on Parliament petitions. The most signed online petition called for the revocation of Article 50 to remain in the EU. Over 6 million signatures, and popular history suggests the most signatures of any petition in British history. The UK's second most popular petition called for a second EU referendum, and that reached over 4 million signatures. Also high on the list was a call not to prorogue Parliament to push Brexit through, and this attracted 1.7 million votes. There have been 2 petitions to forbid Donald Trump, who is a registered sex offender, entry to the UK, 1.86 and 0.58 million respectively. So there is plenty of evidence for the futility of Parliament petitions. There's currently an open petition to shut down the website on these grounds. Because submissions give voice to any half-literate UK resident, the service can be commandeered by raw, red mince-eating, tattoo Karens and the Church of Farage-tology. But that's kind of the point. Among intelligent voters, how we vote in a general election or any election comes down to who is going to do the least harm. The result is small democracy. Why should we wait 5 years when Parliament Petitions gives us a choice to vote every single day? Historically, it's normal for a UK government to intentionally neglect the will of the people. Over its short life of 10 years, the facility has proven consistently our power to put issues on their table. These petitions allow us to ensure MPs use our language even if they spit it back at us. They speak the words we choose for them, as evidenced in this recent session on consumer rights in the video game industry.
And this is the first time Hansard's going to have to write this down, the Grand Pooh World trilogy, and playing it live.
Because of E-Petitions, on Mondays and bigger debates in the chamber, they become our meat puppets, doing the job we pay them to do and have done for hundreds of years.
And I can't resist just saying that Colchester has another claim to fame in this space. It was recreated in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where players are able to roam around our Roman and Anglo-Saxon heritage. I don't know if any other constituency can match that. I raise you.
Lying about the power of E-Petitions or misrepresenting it, passing it off as truth, surrounding the self in a cosy little chamber to wholesale blame MPs, props up governments that hate us. It is no solution to the problem, and in fact makes things worse. Billions of activists in generations previous and this one have fought hard for the rights we do have, and activist burnout is a huge problem only conquered by mass activism. Thankfully, signing an E-Petition takes only 2 minutes, and the Westminster Parliament model is the same. The current open petition opposing ID cards sits at around 3 million. It's likely the cards won't be introduced. Remember, this was proposed way back in 2006 and was defeated in part because of a government portal petition. Where throwback politics recurs, it's important that we keep teaching. Our government have learned this lesson once before, and we need to teach it to them again. Scotland and Wales as devolved regions also have powers through E-Petitions, going to Holyrood and the Senedd respectively. England does not have that power because it's not a devolved region, and there's very little activism for it to become so. If I was appearing on Pornhub with my patriotism like Farage's Gammon Militia, you'd probably think the video would be called 4-Way Devolved Union Jack Brit Fuck Me Till I Flag. Actually, London is a devolved assembly with non-statutory powers under the GLA, the Greater London Authority. They don't accept petitions directly or host them in-house, but they are presented to and through an assembly member. Cool fact, the GLA allow for those signing a petition to be under 17, provided the lead petitioner is a teacher or a youth group leader. Looking at the most recent 20 petitions, they generally involve issues around traffic and policing. Scotland has an E-Petition set up much like that of Westminster. It's direct, from you to them. To explain, here's the undisputed king of internet ranting, David McGuinness, from the Two Davies channel.
So, citizen participation in democracy, that doesn't mean showing up every 4 or 5 years at the ballot box. That means participating all the time in the democracy. Now, there's a couple of ways that citizens can participate in the democracy all the time. One is by getting involved in public consultations, which will be published on your particular Parliament's website or the Parliament's websites. And, of course, by public petition, E-Petitions. You don't even have to go looking for petition forms. You can go to your local government website. Now, what's relevant on a petition form for a member of the public? Well, remember that it's got to be of relevance to the powers of the Parliament you're petitioning. Okay, so in this particular case, it would need to be within the devolved powers of the Scottish Parliament. Who can submit a petition? Well, here in Scotland, The rules may be different in other parts of the UK, but here in Scotland, anyone or organisation can submit a petition, regardless of age or where they live. You don't even have to live in Scotland, as long as the matter relates to a devolved issue here in Scotland. Okay, now what information do you need to put on your public petition? Well, your petition must include your contact details, a brief title, a summary of what you want the Parliament to do, and any background information. You must also show what previous actions you have taken to resolve the matter, the issue that you're bringing before the Scottish Parliament. Now, your initial review, after you submit your form, your petition will go before the Citizens Participation Public Petitions team, and they will look at it, make sure it's filled out properly, and then they will forward it to the Petitions Committee. The Petitions Committee will look at it, consider it, and if they think it's worthy, they will put it up on the government website for up to 6 months. There are other actions they could take as well if they think it's really important and involves another committee within the Parliament and it's within their brief. They could pass it there, or they could raise it for debate on the floor of the Scottish Parliament, or they could recommend action to the Scottish Government, or they could, as I say, they could have a look at your petition and decide, no, it's not worth pursuing. Now, important considerations. Whatever Parliament you're petitioning, make sure it's within their powers. Petitions are not for emergency matters. If you've got an emergency, speak to your local representative, whether it be an MP or an MSP, depending on what the issue is about. And only one signature is required for a petition here in Scotland. I don't know how it is elsewhere. It doesn't have to be opened up for public signatures. Just one's enough to be considered by the committee. And if it is published, it will stay up on the government website for 6 months and then be had a look at it again by the committee and recommended actions taken. You may also be asked to come and speak to the committee. So, folks, participation in democracy is very important. As I say, there's a couple of ways to do it, and it's not just going to the ballot box every few years. It's actually getting involved. So look up consultations and look up petitions and get involved.
Petitions to the Welsh Senedd are broadly the same, plug and play, a few differences. Importantly, you can't employ formal backup using petitions from other websites. To activate a petition, you need 2 backers, contrasting with 5 in Westminster and none in Holyrood. Petitioners and signees must be resident in Wales. Other rules are broadly the same fair practice. No naming names. For example, you couldn't say, host an inquiry into Welsh Labour MP Alex Barras Curtis's removing people from shortlists for criticising Keir Starmer and constructing narratives of anti-Semitism around him. You're not allowed to duplicate signatures or petitions, such as host an inquiry into ex-Labour MP Alex Barras Curtis's doctoring of documents and widespread racist policies as a weapon for character assassination. And you're not allowed to use language that is offensive, intemperate, or provocative. Host an inquiry into why Welsh Labour MP Alex Barras Curtis is a particularly ugly piece of shit who should be rotting in a jail cell while maggots with the faces of Piers Corbyn feast on his jaundiced half-corpse. Sorry, that wasn't a good example. Looking through Senedd e-petitions, there seem to be none reaching the 10,000 threshold for a debate in the chamber. However, only 250 names are required for discussion by the Petitions Committee. By that, there's evidence of consistent grassroots activism in Wales, and the range of subject matter is as broad as it is on the UK Parliament site. Health and welfare, the environment, education, traffic, feral capitalism, and the usual assortment of submissions by green gammon tea scalders, crooked biscuits, and grifter badgers. Which brings us nicely on to Northern Ireland. It's a source of constant frustration to me. Oh, sorry, I thought we were done there. It's a source of constant frustration to me looking through Parliament petitions' geographical breakdowns and seeing the people of Northern Ireland refuse to get involved with the process. Some here see Parliament e-petitions as rocking the boat, something I feel is, quite frankly, nonsense. If Northern Ireland's history has taught us anything, it's the importance of rocking the boat through non-violence, equality, and democratic participation. Despite being the devolved region with the most powers, NI Stormont Parliament is the only one without an e-petition facility. Between 2009 and 2016, a review for possibly implementing the facility was taken with testimony from advocates. Despite a stoicism bordering on cynicism throughout the report, it concluded favourably with a willingness to implement Stormont e-petitions. Almost 10 years on, nada, zip, zilch. So to dissect this palaver, I called up People Before Profit West Belfast MLA, Gerry Carroll. So we're talking about e-petitions, and I wonder, could you explain the process that Stormont has in place of e-petitions now? So I would go to you or another MLA.
Yeah, it's a wee bit more complicated as such. I know Westminster, there's a threshold, I think, is it 100,000, I think, in Westminster?
10,000.
10,000, sorry. And then I think it kind of automatically can be heard on the floor of Westminster. Stormont is a bit more kind of loosely defined as such, so there's not actually a specific number that you need. So like I brought, petitions in the past of mostly around a couple of thousand mark, so some were maybe 2,000 or 3,000, and maybe from memory a few other higher figures. But there's no exact number as such, which in theory, I suppose, makes it a bit more accessible to people. And then MLA submit that the petition to the business office in Stormont, which kind of decides, when it can be put on the agenda in Stormont. So in theory, it's a bit more flexible than Westminster because you have that that 10,000 figure. And it's not needed in Stormont. And like I said, I've presented some. We did one recently there around Invest NI and their connections with Israel. And I think it was around 2,000 or 3,000 people had signed that petition. And we presented that on the floor of Stormont. You have like 3 minutes to speak on the petition, the reasons why people signed it. And obviously, it doesn't mean the issue is, sort of sorted or legislated for it, but it means that ministers and people in Stormont are hearing that there's a significant number of people who are vexed about from our point of view, Israel and the Invest NI, the connections there, or a range of other issues. So in theory, a bit more flexible Stormont, which is usually not the case with most other things.
Yeah. So there was a review of public petitions procedures, sort of 2011, 2014, sort of accelerating that point to 2016. And I mean, this is about the point you became an MLA, so there might have been overlap, there might not have been. And their findings were the current system they thought was fine, yet they agreed that e-petitions could be implemented. And then came the big 2017 to 2020 shutdown, and presumably got shelved, and there were a backlog of other priorities to deal with. So I wondered if it was a mechanism you've heard about being talked amongst MLAs and community leaders, NGOs, formally or informally.
I think it has been. I mean, I was on the procedures committee in Stormont. You're testing my memory, Andy. which period when before it was down? So one of the last ones, and I think there was some general kind of mention of it, standards and procedures committee, but there was no like concrete recommendation from memory. So yeah, I think it's kind of there's some interest in it generally, but it's not like we would get links about e-petitions and we'd be asked to share them and highlight them and so on and so forth. Excuse me, but there doesn't tend to be like a general push from, I think, NGOs or unions or people like that. From my knowledge, to call for that. I mean, obviously we've had the issue of the last few days with the Paul Given petition, so we've been working with colleagues and others around that, which has got, I think, 14,000 or thereabouts. The last time I checked, anyway. And I think that's on Act now. So there's mechanisms there, and in theory, obviously we have a motion, as you know, on Monday to talk about, no confidence in the minister. But in theory, if that motion wasn't going ahead, we could submit that petition to Stormont, a short time afterwards. So seems to be a bit flexible. I'm not obviously fully aware of the ins and outs of how the Westminster process works.
Yeah, it's my understanding Given acted in his official capacity rather than as a private individual, and that hadn't been checked with Stormont, which presents some problems. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I'm a great advocate of the Downing Street petitions, e-petition thing, and because it's putting words directly into MPs' mouth, at least some words, maybe a sentence. And what I notice is there's always a really low turnout with Northern Ireland compared to the rest of the UK. And I mean, I've got a few sort of guesses as to why that is, but really it enrages me and stumps me. I wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
I don't think most British politicians give a damn about people here, despite, even the ones who profess to support, the United Kingdom and, Britain and all those kind of things. I think they don't really give a damn in most cases about their own constituents, working class English people or working class people from different countries across the world. And they give less of a damn about, working class people, Catholic, Protestant, migrants or neither. So, I think it's as simple as that. They're just kind of not really interested.
Do you think that's so it's a feedback loop as to why there's so fewer signatories from Northern Ireland to Downing Street petitions? It's like they don't care about us. We don't care about them. We don't care to interact with them.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that. Yeah, it could be. Obviously, there's different petitions going through Westminster, and I think, generally speaking, there's I think from my understanding, there's not a lot of ones being discussed that relate to here. I know they're sort of submitted sort of fairly regularly, but I don't think there's a lot of discussion about that. And if there is, it certainly does make its way over to the news and the population here. So, I think it's Stormont, kind of mechanisms are kind of out of date in a general sense. They're decent on the petitions at the minute. But Westminster is just completely sort of archaic and out of touch, and like that's reflected somewhat here,
So I'm going to take a gamble and suggest that a Stormont petition thing would be a facility you'd be in favour of. Do you think such a direct democracy, a voter representation decisions would help us find our new direction as a country and push past all those blockades of all sorts?
I think so. I mean, I think it's important to have something where people can kind of voice their concern about a minister or a decision or issues that have been implemented. So I think it's really, really important that people know about them, and for people that don't know about petitions and the facility that exists in Stormont already, they should be made aware of that. And also, I think there should be more sort of public knowledge about that, because it's an important way for, as you say, for people to have their say.
Thanks, Gerry. The argument of they don't care, why should we, is something I do empathise with, but I still feel the logic is shallow and lazy. 10 days ago, I reached out to an MLA from a low participation area to ask the same question, why not? But got no response. So I'm left to speculate on why many in Northern Ireland don't play the e-petitions game. Now, many of those are in areas where Sinn Féin hold power, not exclusively by any means. The party don't take their seats at Westminster because of a problem with swearing an oath to Sausage Fingers Peter Brother. I wonder, is there a habitually formed effect of trickle down to the electorate? I asked Reddit Northern Ireland to an unusually muted response from that community, and a feeling where there was a response that such a system would be seized on by NI's two aggressive tribes. Certainly that mentality of you must support one team or the other plays a part, despite over a third of people in Northern Ireland identifying as neither British or Irish, Catholic or Protestant. Surely, though, some of it must be down to political tribalism. The obligatory conditions of the Good Friday Agreement, for all of its wonders, has a flaw whereby a unionist or a United Irelandist are guaranteed power, regardless of significant change in voting patterns. And partly it may be down to how every few years those parties' voices, wet-lipped prepubescents, phone up pretending to be their mothers, saying, oh, they can't come into Parliament today because the other one's dog has peed on their tricycle. When I was talking to Gerry Carroll, he mentioned Act Now, a petition site I was not aware of, which has a dedicated NI space floating a lot of key motions. I wouldn't have found this if the politician and I hadn't talked for this programme about e-petitions. And as he said, signatories on there are evidence he can take into Parliament. The Senedd explicitly forbids other URL petitions being taken in as proof, but at the least, these back up what a representative is speaking on. So for Stormont, or those in the devolved Greater London Authority, they're a resource. Of course, there's a wealth of other petition sites. Change.org and Avaz operate globally with that anyone can use open source philosophy. 38 Degrees is a UK site with prompts to act on the environment, as well as local government and politics. Oh, hold on a moment. There you go. Take that, you evil slob. And there are many other focused petition spots. Amnesty International on human rights, Greenpeace on animal rights, to name two. Politics without activism is academics wankfest. Or to put it politely, politics on its own is a lot like a meal consisting only of tofu. No flavour, no filling. Point being, do something. Just time for some of the top stories this week. Panic at the BBC when Trump announces he will sue them. A misunderstanding. He thought the video was tagged Epstein and a different kind of BBC. Liz Truss begins dig into the Mariana Trench. Lord Goddamned of the Fly, Shabana Quetzalcoatl Baphomet murderer Mahmoud, summoned by the Farajanomicon. Her plan to return all of hell's underbeasts back to the UK by purifying sulphuric flame has been decried. But the dumb bitch can't hear because she's busy talking with her 666 tongues. Morgan McSweeney spotted near Auschwitz Memorial accusing people of being Hitler. The actions of a secret UK Prime Minister from County Cork prompted an IRA spokesman to come from retirement and deny he was one of theirs. Challenges to Keir Starmer's leadership of Labour from Wes Streeting, Clive Lewis, Angela Rayner, Shabana Morningstar Mahmood. There's about 70 other names here. Victory for the Socialist Youth Party as a gay and trans-bashing landlord with multiple real estate companies quits. And Anne Hussein complained they don't like his type, the Daily Mail reported in their exclusive. As quickly now, the Met Office prediction of an Arctic blast of snowfall prompts dozens of journalists to report outside in sub-zero conditions, martyring themselves to hypothermia. And a Reform councillor expelled on a day ending with day in its name. You can vote Act Sign for Screencleaner right now by hitting the like button, and in a minute leave a comment or three. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye for now.